Ready?
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to be here. It is 9:17. We will convene the regular Board of County Commissioner meeting for agenda. Tuesday, April 9th, we're meeting in Cripple Creek in the Teller County Centennial Building. Thank you all for being here. We will start the proceedings today with an invocation by Commissioner Williams, and Jody Maharas will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. If you please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for another opportunity to serve the great county of Teller. Thank you for your opportunity to serve our residents, to do the right thing. Help us always to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong. In His name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next up on the agenda, we have Commissioner meeting minutes from the 7th and the 19th. I think there's already been a couple corrections relayed for the minutes.
Yes, I had some.
Those order reflected in Mr. Chair.
Not ours, but
Okay.
I think Ross's copy might be
Okay.
corrected.
Have corrections, Ross, so we don't have the same ones, or I didn't have any additional ones unless you had some.
Okay. We'll go ahead and start. I'll just mention on the in attendance, we had chair and vice chair reversed. All right, and then on the second page, administrator's report, Commissioner William thanked Ross Servazog and Fred Campbell. I think it was supposed to be Fred Clifford.
He'll answer to both, sir. So those are the only additional ones, sir.
That's the one I had on the 7th. Anybody else have any corrections or notes?
Sir.
I don't have a.
Okay.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Sure, I make a motion that with the exception of the reversal of Barrington County Commissioner Chair Bob Campbell, page 1, and then Fred Campbell, those are the only corrections we have. I make a motion that we approve the minutes dated March 7th, 2024 as amended.
Second.
All right, assuming no other discussion, roll call please.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes. And on March 19th, we have the same reversal of chair and vice chair in attendance.
That explains why I'm getting on your mail, Bob.
Purposeful.
Just trying to help.
Have any,
Oh, actually, it's more than just the reversal.
Yeah.
It's the vice chair.
I know. I'll
That's-
straighten it.
Okay.
Russ.
I think that's the only thing I found that you did, Eric.
I have nothing else.
All right, do we have a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the proceedings of the Board of County Commissioners of Teller County, Colorado, dated March 19th, 2024, as amended.
Second the motion, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Roll call, please.
Mr. Stone.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes. And then we have our accounts payable.
Have any comments unless you do?
I just like to always note some large ones. We had 300,774.23 for the monthly sales tax. And then in this run, we had the additional contractors based on our emergency and us having to employ some contractors around to get some of the private roads, which I think we talked about that Tuesday during the plowing process. The county declared a state of emergency and to assist our public works, because we normally don't do private roads, but we had several subdivisions that were extremely stuck and they had equipment to do their jobs because they normally do all the plowing in their subdivisions. But they were either overwhelmed by the amount of snow or they had lots of broken equipment and people couldn't get to the subdivisions. So we made the unusual move to go ahead and hire some contractors to help us out. So some of those payments are already coming through and that totaled 84,000. And then also because of some of the snow and deterioration of the roads, some of our road gravel expenditures were already hitting the books because we've been buying tons and tons of gravel to spread out through some of these roads that are almost unrepairable, but getting there, and road crew's done a great job fixing them. So we had one for the Mule Creek gravel pit for 97. And with that, that was the ones I wanted to note.
Yeah, I just add to what our chair said as well with regards to plowing people's driveways. All your commissioners were out there, as you know, during that emergency, and it doesn't do any good to be a mile or a half mile from someone's home and they're 80 years old. So I know Jay may talk about it if he has anything to say today for our OEM, but essentially that was our vulnerable population who couldn't get out on their own. We had needs from hospice care to oxygen to those types of things. So again, it is highly unusual, but it's also highly unusual to have a storm like that. I think last one was 25 years ago. So we will, I guess, roll that up and try to see if we can get some money back from the state. So did the right thing. So that's all I have. Eric, anything, sir?
No, I'll reserve my comments for my report. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the accounts payable dated April 5th, 2024, the amount of $1,213,222.83 as written and presented.
Second.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. Assuming no other discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Campbell?
Yes. All right, next up, we have board reports, beginning with Commissioner Stone.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. It's actually been quite a while since we've had a meeting, just because of the way that the calendar has fallen. But in between the last one and this one, obviously, we've had a major snow event, which we already begun to talk about in regards to the accounts payable and monies that were authorized by the commissioners to be spent to help out our residents, especially those who are in neighborhoods where the roads are private, but exceeded the ability of those neighborhoods to remove snow that we had. And I want to start off first off by thanking our OEM. I want to thank our sheriff's department. I want to thank all our first responders, our public works people, and of course our county administrator, Ross Herzog, as well as just about every department head in the county, because this impacted everything. It impacted IT. We had to move servers because of the power outages in Cripple Creek. The impacts of this, they weren't immeasurable, but they were significant. And again, as Commissioner Campbell stated, we did enter into a state of emergency. There may be a possibility we might see some help from the state on that, but if not, we have a fund, for emergencies that we can dip into, and we chose to do that. Again, just really proud of including our public works people. We're still, I think we just got a report this morning on the final costs of the total of damage and other costs for Teller County as a whole, because we had a lot of businesses that couldn't open for days because of both power outages as well as people not being mobile and not being able to move around. So there were a lot of economic losses, but there was also a lot of damage out there as well. And we're putting all of that together in a package where we hope that maybe we might get some assistance from the state on that. Was able to attend yesterday the Central Front Range Transportation Planning Region meeting, which was held in Colorado Springs, and that moves around the 5-county region, but this time it was in Colorado Springs. There is one fairly major road project for Teller County, which is going to be delayed, and that is the resurfacing of Highway 67 in Woodland Park from the junction of 67 and 24 north up to about the light at Evergreen. There was a resurfacing project there. It came in substantially over the budgeted amount, the bids did. So they are pulling that back for a potential redesign and a rebid in the fall, perhaps when the window is a little better. But what that means is we got to roll for another year, another summer season with Highway 67 not being in the greatest shape. I did talk with the maintenance people at CDOT at the meeting yesterday. They're aware of it. They're going to be out patching and doing what they can. But the only thing that's really going to fix that road is the resurfacing. And again, because the bids came in substantially higher than the amount budgeted for the project, they did not award a bid, and they're going to send it back out this fall at a time when they hope they can get more activity on it. In addition to that, for all of our partners out there, and some of them were on the call, so like our transit partners in those, there's going to be some multimodal funds that are going to be available from the Central Front Range TPR. And that can affect transit, it can affect pedestrian, sidewalks, et cetera, different kind of non-road projects, but are still about mobility and people moving around. There'll be about $1 million over the next 3 years that will be available, not just for Teller County, but for the entire region. I know a lot of our partners were there at the meeting, the Teller Senior Coalition, and I believe Cripple Creek Transit was online also with that meeting, so they're aware of it. But there are going to be some funding opportunities there as well. And then beyond that, and it's government related, but it's not government related. But I do want to talk about it publicly, which is this past weekend. I did attend as a delegate, and as did other electeds here in Teller County, the state GOP Republican Assembly. And there were things that happened at that assembly which go against, not only, in my opinion, the principles of the Republican Party, but frankly go against our very founding documents, and go against what our nation is as a representative democracy, constitutional democracy. There were two specific things that happened that I do want to point out. Commissioner Williams has already released a statement earlier today talking about it. One of which was they threw out a reporter from the Colorado Sun because they thought that her reporting was unfair. And she had her press credentials taken, and she was escorted out by armed deputies. That is not how government should operate, even though this is a private organization. It's a private organization that is there and exists in order to get people elected. And democracy only thrives in sunshine. It doesn't thrive behind closed doors. And so that was wrong. It was improper. I hope to never see that again. The press is the fourth estate. That has always been the check on government, is the press, and freedom of the press is important. And rather than closing doors, we should be opening them wide open for them to see what we could do, or to see how we operate, how we do business, and to allow the public then to judge us on facts, and not do business behind closed doors. The second thing that happened was there was a resolution that essentially stated that was directing the Central Committee of the GOP to opt out of the primary election, which I do not support, because if you opt out of the primary election, now I do want to state, I do believe that Democrats should vote in Democrat primaries, and I do believe that Republicans should vote in Republican primaries, and I don't agree with the concept of open primaries, but that is the law. But by opting out, what you're essentially doing is canceling a primary for the Republican Party, which means that only a very small group of people will choose who people see on and get to vote on for the general election ballot. And in order to achieve that, as part of this resolution, they simply stated and directed the Central Committee to not count no votes. In other words, they would put together a resolution and a vote to opt out of the primary, and if anybody voted no, they would simply not count those votes. Not counting votes that you disagree with. The effect of that could be that the chairman of the party could vote yes, and every other member of the Central Committee, all 400 of them, could vote no, yet it would still pass reportedly with 100% of the vote. That's not America. If you watch some documentaries from the early 1900s about what was going on in Europe and was beginning to infect America with some of the fascist forms of governance that were being proposed, that we were on the precipice of that. If they follow through with that, we would be on the precipice of that. That people can't be trusted to vote for candidates. That's not the America that we all grew up in. That's not the America that was founded. I'm outraged simply by it. So I am going to be putting out a statement, specifically about that part of the meeting. Commissioner Williams has already addressed the freedom of the press issue, but that's not how government should operate, and that's not how any political party that operates within the government sphere should operate either. So with that, Mr. Chair, there's other things going on. There's a lot of things going on. I will be up at the legislature for several days this week, along with the other commissioners. We're testifying, as well as participating in steering committee meetings with other commissioners from around the state. There's a lot of really important things happening in this state, and when when I see things like this weekend that just make things worse. We need to come together as a county. We need to come together as a state. We need to come together as a country. And what happened this weekend will accomplish none of those. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Steen. Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, I'm just as pissed off. I'll start with good news too. If I could, Mr. Chair, I do want to thank OEM as well. Jay, thank you. And the sheriff, we had that meeting last time, Ross, for your leadership. I can't think of anything more crucial as a county manager than a disaster like that. And you were unflappable and appreciated our attorney for his legal advice, the declaration of an emergency. There's always folks out there who don't want to declare emergencies. They think that's a sign of weakness. It's not. It sometimes opens you up to, it does two things. We'll talk about the press. It alerts the press and the people of your county that this is serious. People would die. And if you look at the notices that we sent out a day before the storm hit, they all said this is a dangerous storm. And there are 7 people left today that were here before the storm. And 2 of them directly attributed, and a couple others that were on hospice care. They couldn't get care, or maybe didn't get oxygen. I think we had that report already from our county coroner. But anyway, I just want to thank everybody. We'll get ready for the next one, which will probably be a fire. And so we'll do what we can there. Yeah, I'm as outraged as Eric. Again, with the chair's permission, we're the party of freedom and liberty. At least we like to tell people that. This was a presidential year. This was the worst attended assembly I've ever been. Less than 60% of the delegates showed up. By hand vote, over half of that group had never been to one before. And so what's normally an honorable process that goes back 100 years on both sides, of Democrats and Republicans, is the traditional way to get on the ballot. For example, all 3 of us have done it to get here, and Eric and I did it a few weeks ago. And we'll advance to the primary because we did it at the county level with a lot of honor and integrity. I have a statement I'll read for the record so that we can put it on there, but Eric mentioned it. The 4th estate comes from England. In England, which is really where a lot of our law comes from, you had 3 estates. You had the nobility, you had the clergy, and you had the common people, and which I'm a common person. The only reason and the only way that the common people ever found out what was going on is because somebody told them, the town crier, later on with the written word. So the role of the press has always been called the 4th estate. Look, I've been to combat 6 times. And every time I went, I had embedded press. And it wasn't always pretty, especially when you crash and people die and they see things. And they're sitting there with a suitcase satellite communication device that they can go ahead and tell your wife that you're dead before she gets told officially. And that's the only time I ever talked to the press, other than to let them report free and fairly what they saw, was to say, please don't report that for 24 hours so I can get a hold of somebody's wife. So this is the statement I released this morning, and it's wide. It went to Denver, it went to the governor's office, it went to senators, Republicans, and Democrats. If you didn't see it before, Eric and I and our all our elected officials, and I happen to be the clerk and recorder too, so proud to have you there. I was ashamed of what happened. Before we even got back, Senator Hickenlooper released a statement, Barbara Kirkmeyer, folks that were there and folks that weren't. So this is my official statement. I have long respected the 4th estate, our free press, and its role for communicating to the American people. From the press that accompanied me on the battlefields of Afghanistan and Iraq, to the press that bears witness to the political processes of today, I was embarrassed and angered to hear that members of the press were thrown out of this past weekend's GOP assembly. In a free society, we do not silence our press, nor do we hand select only those who represent us in a positive light. As a public servant, you should always strive to do the right thing, making the best decisions you can with the information available at the time. I join many others in Colorado today in expressing my deep disappointment and alarm that any member of the press who is perceived to not be fair to a cause not be allowed to report, especially when it relates to those who seek to government by the people, for the people, only works if the people are informed. And so again, Pat talked to me this morning. Pat Hill was online and saying, Trevor, I apologize on behalf of our party to both of our local presses, and it certainly won't happen here. Transparency is one of our ethos here on the website, and in Teller County, it's been so for a long time. As Eric mentioned, right now there are 639 bills that have been introduced into both the Senate and the House. The breakdown is 440 House bills, 199 Senate bills, everything from impeachment of there's an impeachment bill and resolution that's gone forward. That'll be looked at this week, to what Eric's probably talking about, the concealed carry permit. I think that's Thursday. They'll look at it. A lot of the gun bills have moved forward very, very quickly. Some of them are tabled, for a while, but again, we've got to fight all those. For me personally, as both my commissioner brothers know, there's a Senate bill on water, 24-197 on water rights in the Arkansas Basin. That's us, including what the Front Range takes from us, and also my involvement along with our commissioners on the water rights. Really quickly, again, feudal water rights are the water that you'll see up here in Springs. A lot of you guys have them on your property. They've been grandfathered prior to 1972. And by stroke of a pen on a water engineer, they were going to take those from our ranchers. We had a meeting, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, and it had such an impact, along with DNR and the governor's office, that that person was no longer the water engineer and been replaced by Jason Ullman, who's the state water engineer. And if you don't know about that job, it's constitutional. They have statutory rights. They have a lot of freedom. They also need to put common sense on the table. And this is one more issue where 47 rural counties are being pitted against the Front Range, and it stops with Teller County. And so those bills and things related to those bills are forefront for us. As Eric mentioned, I'm sure Bob will mention, CCI, Colorado Counties Incorporated, was also at that meeting. And they now include, Broomfield and Denver shortly, and Boulder are in there. So it's really a Colorado voice, and she was there with us. But we'll be up there Thursday and Friday this week, shaping and fighting and supporting bills. Last one was Senate Bill 174. I've probably put about 100 hours into this one, round 2 of the amendments this weekend, but that's where they try to look at growth management plans. They try to insert climate change, and I'm not going to make a statement on that, but I will simply say that Teller County's growth management plan is based on science. It's based on divide, where our water is. It's not based on celestial things that we can't control potentially, at least at the county level. But there's a housing needs assessment. There is a regional approach. I always am frightened when I hear that, because our region includes Colorado Springs, and we don't have a lot in common with El Paso. We do a lot with them, like Eric does with Central Front Range TPR and Pikes Peak area governments. But when it comes to trying to put us in one bat, when it comes to the rural part of this Colorado, it doesn't work. So we'll continue to look at that. There was a move in there to make it only apply to counties above 5,000. So that's like everybody. So I think we've got that raised to 40,000, which will cut us out. Eric mentioned this, and Bob, in the past, that sometimes when you can't defeat a bill, you cut the ugly off the bill, or you say, yeah, that's a great bill, but only 40,000 above. And that's how we fight for time. So more on that one. I do want to publicly congratulate Woodland Park Council. I know the commissioners want to go there in about a week or so. We gave them time to get sworn in. I think most of us have talked to all the new elected. It's time to put the sabers down. That was a race that had some ugly in it, and for all the reasons that somehow seem to accompany races. But we have full faith and confidence that the voters did the right thing, and that we'll put a friendship hand out there, because we will have things we'll work with them on, from Jay's stuff on fires to crime to everything else. So again, congratulations, Woodland Park Council. And finally, just one board report on my CPW work. I sit on the State of Colorado Wildlife Council. On the 18th, for part of that day, we will go as a council to the Capitol. They're hosting a lunch that is everything from elk, bison, duck, that kind of thing. It's nonpartisan, to get basically both houses to talk about wildlife and wildlife management in the North American model. Why is that important? Because in all probability, you will see something on the ballot this year about mountain lions. And whether you feel mountain lions need to be controlled or not, what we're fighting is the people have already decided. That's what we have, CPW and DNR. But if we're going to do wildlife management on a ballot for every species, we're going to be in trouble. We already have the wolverines coming now. And as you know, with the wolves, most of you have heard that we've had our first predation of 6 calves. So continue to look at that. And again, most of those issues are rural, and which is something that makes me very comfortable. But also there's a bunch of people on the Front Range that hunt and fish up here, or don't hunt and fish up here. So we'll continue to do that. That, Mr. Chair, I turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, I won't belabor your comments, although I agree on the process that happened at that assembly. I myself did not attend, but I wholeheartedly support everything you guys have said and object to the process. And in some regards, that's one of the reasons I didn't go, is because I knew what was going to happen, and some of a messy show, to use polite words instead of an anachronism. Been quite busy behind the scenes working just a lot of the processes that I'm involved in. Been working with a limited gaming impact grant process, and we got another meeting this afternoon trying to streamline some of the grants that we go after every year for gaming grants, and make that application process a little more logical and a little more across the board. So when our board, which I happen to sit on, reviews them, that we're comparing apples to apples. And there's been a couple subjects within the application that weren't always apples and apples. It was more like trying to compare 3 different buckets of scenarios and not being able to come up with what's the right answer. I've been working quite a bit with Colorado Workman's Comp Board, which I happen to chair, And some of the processes we're going through there with CTSI. Been having some meetings with Pikes Peak Workforce Board and keeping their process moving forward now that we're done with the federal audit, but we're still going through a CDLE process at the state. And it's still not fun, which is a story that I've been talking about for months now, but the state side of the audit is still going on and still a little bit contentious about what they're trying to attack and what they're not trying to attack. And then on the legislative side, there's been 17 bills that the Tax and Finance Committee that I work with have been working on since the initial week or two of the session. But most of those bills, with the exception of 2 of them, I think it is, have been sort of parked in appropriations because until last week and a few items moving forward this week, they've all been waiting on the budget. And the budget appropriation from the long bill finally came out from the Joint Budget Committee, and now some of the tax bills are starting to see some light and being discussed. And we'll be working those on Thursday. And just for an informational standpoint, we normally hold these meetings on the second and fourth Thursday every month, but this week it is on Tuesday because we're up at CCI doing those legislative committees both Thursday and Friday, so we moved the calendar. So I appreciate everybody's tolerance in making a Tuesday meeting instead of a normal Thursday meeting, but we'll be attacking all those things this week also. And without being redundant, I liked your discussion on the water. I liked your discussion on the assembly. So thank you very much for expressing the opinions, which I agree with. And I think I'll leave it at that. And we will now move to elected officials report. I'll start with you, Ms. Keys, our clerk and recorder. Anything to report?
I was not going. Hundreds of people there, and it was their first time. To be fun, so.
Have you guys got some questions?
Go ahead, sure.
Just one comment, if you're comfortable talking about it, you know, we continue to stand next to you on fair elections. We have elections coming. With the primary, we have processes, we have machines. Do you care to comment on what we saw? There was a paper ballot attempt in terms of what you thought in terms of showmanship or how long it took, or was it any more efficient? Any comment you have? I know we don't do that here. We have our process that we stand by.
Four to 5 hours. That's what happened.
I appreciate it. The reason why I asked her is we were there, Eric and I as well, and other elected officials, and the criticism of non-hand counting has been technology. Part of this hand counting, and you, I agree with everything you said, relied on this thing, this iPhone. So even though you had a piece of paper for one person, you still had to go on an unsecured thing. I mean, it's silly, but it just made me respect you in your office and Crystal before you so much more on trying to handle 20,000 ballots with multiple questions. And this was theater. This was theater where people walked around with clear boxes. And I've just never seen them like Eric. We're still sort of stunned that it happened, and we're going to do things about it. But thank you for what you're doing here. And the people in Teller County should be very comfortable with our processes. So thank you, man. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, other elected officials, Carol Kittison, our assessor.
Nothing to pay, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right, Crystal Brown, our treasurer and public trustee.
We'll save mine for my time reserved.
All right. Seeing no other elected officials, county administrator report, Mr. Herzog.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll quite a last couple.
Yeah, I was gonna comment, Ross, that, my road, I live on a county road as well, and Fred was right. As soon as it got dry, it's cement now. And so I saw him trying to grade multiple roads the other day, but until we get some more moisture, or then the gravel, it's just bad. If you drive an F-250, you lose your teeth when you hit those bumps, but it's countywide, and there are a lot of new people. And I think we have about a 10 to 20% turnover rate every year in Teller County, and so we have been getting a lot of calls. We do return those that we can get back to, just to explain them what mud season is and how mud season turns into concrete season. But they are out there. They're also trying to clear culverts. I think last count we had 5,000 culverts. On my ranch, they're just starting to move a little bit. So it is a process, so, but I think you and Bob said that's what those costs are on our accounts.
And somewhat to the opposite, when the roads are muddy, and this storm created a lot of situations where the snow wasn't completely off all the road surfaces, it's hard to plow mud. And sometimes it makes more of a mess when you try to plow mud. So some of it's a balance between letting it dry out and getting the critical issues dealt with. But I know at one point the plows came through my road because we had some serious stuff, and it was worthless to try to plow mud because that causes more hassle than it solves. So some of that is a balance of waiting for some drying out to happen, especially on all of our gravel roads, which accounts for what, 500 out of our 560 miles of road. So it is a tough time of season, and I just like to thank everybody for their patience and tolerance that we're out there working with all of our pieces of equipment and all of our resources every day, but it does take some time, so have some tolerance. Anything else on your report?
More to follow once.
All right, next up, we have time for department heads. Ginger.
I do not have a report unless there was a topic you gentlemen have questions on or would like me to speak to.
I think, Jay, Ross, you probably mentioned it. We should have most of the costs now so that we can talk about those after.
Yes, sure to do that.
And we will, we'll sync up with you when we release it and you release it so we can get it, see if we get back. So thank you for all your work on that.
Kim, or do you have anything that's not on the agenda? All right, am I missing anybody? All right. Next up, we have time reserved for public that do not have items on the agenda today. Do we have any public that would like to speak?
Yes, sir. Right here.
Yep.
Sorry about this. I'm a rookie at all this.
That's right.
Just state your name and then.
My name is Sean Fryer. I live at 1306 Upper Twin Rocks Road, down here in Florissant. Been working for about a year and a half on the flooding and road base that's coming off of the Druids. I received a letter back in November of last year from Mr. Herzog. Sent an email back requesting more information. Sir, I haven't received anything. I'm just looking for info. Okay, everybody keeps telling me no, 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 but nobody wants to provide me the facts. You have, if you're looking for gravel to put on roads, it's in my front prairie from your plows. Okay, I have no problem piling it up, but it's getting old. I've been told that many different reasons. I got 13 emails just between me and the commissioners. Well, I should say between me going to the commissioners because nobody can return my calls. Nobody wants to email me back. I'm just looking for assistance. I'm not looking for the county to do all the work. I'll help out. I've basically said that I will dig a trench from the current culvert all the way down to the bottom creek bed of my prairie, and you just put a culvert in, I'll bury the daggone thing. Right now, I can't get any grass to grow on my prairie at all. I had a long thing to write up here, but then I realized I only had a couple of minutes. So if I get a little off course, I apologize. I am a 27-year veteran, so I know all about patience. Mr. Evans and I had that discussion earlier, okay? I've been very patient. I think I've sat back on my haunches long enough. I'm asking for check downs to come down Druid Hills Road, Trail Road, right there by the mailboxes. You put some check downs in, that's gonna slow the water down. I was told I've been called a liar by members of your teams. I can't remember his name, it's in one of the emails. He came out there, told me I was a liar, didn't know what I was talking about with my own property. I've only lived there 6 years, but I do my research. There used to be a fire break on my property. They blocked it off, put trees up, and now they can't utilize it to get directly into the fossil beds. Last year's fire for the fossil beds was less than a half mile from my house. Okay, I cut the fence down on my property so the fire trucks could stage right there. I had no problem. I don't mind helping the county out. All I'm asking for is a little bit, instead of this memo, and I don't know if the commissioner's got a chance to read it or not, okay? But basically, it says in here that you were informed about all this, okay? So I could sit here and read it, whatnot, but what sense is it gonna make? I know that when I walk out this door today, gentlemen, there's probably nothing gonna. But I figured it was about time for me to put a face to my name that I keep emailing. And I'm not gonna stop. The one thing that the Army taught me was persistence. All right, I don't take no that doesn't work for an answer. There's gotta be a way we can fix it. And I'm willing to help. I'm willing to get out there with my tractor, just like I do with everybody else's driveways that I go and grade. I'm willing to get out there and help. The ditch that is on the other side of my property, on the other side of the road, is completely filled. It's been that way for a year and a half. A year and a half. It's a dedicated trench that goes to a culvert that spits out into my property. That would not be filled if we had the check downs coming off the Druids. Correct? Most likely. All right, coming down Upper Twin from Teller 1. That hill, it has broken through the berm that was on my property, separating my property and the road for the last 6 years. The berm is very minimally there. I'm just asking for assistance to get this stuff rebuilt and assistance to get it taken care of. I would like my horses to graze on the open prairie that is out there for them. But they can't do that when all I have is take 30 minutes of your time so you can explain to me your side, not just your county team side, the ones that have called me a liar, the ones that have told me to dig trenches in my own property to mitigate this. If you look at your own regulations state that it is your responsibility to continue upgrades. They told me that those regulations are only for brand new builds. When I read through it, it does not specify anything about it being just for a brand new build. Nothing at all. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. I'm not gonna hold up any more of it. I doubt very much this will go anywhere, but at least I got the opportunity to bring it. Hopefully I'll hear from somebody.
Well, thank you, sir, for being here and expressing your comments and feelings on the situation. Gentlemen, do you have anything or should?
Yeah, if I could, Sean, thanks for your
Yes.
service to our country. I always want to tell you that because we do have about 5,000 vets here and I'm one of them. That aside,
Thank you, sir.
if it's true that a county employee lied to you, I apologize for that. That's not how we treat our residents. And, again, I don't have that in front of me. I'm going to take your word as you came here to speak to us, but I do know there's a lot of stress in the road and bridge department. I'm one of those guys that drives a Kubota trying to fix a mile on my road. When you hear the word historic drainage, I used to be the planner here. We typically think about pre-construction drainage. So if you were here in the 1880s, you'd come down and see the stream,
Right.
that. The reg actually talks about development on adjacent property causing it. And so whether that development is county employee related, i.e. grading, or me as your neighbor who does something, and those things are either litigated or worked out in a friendly weather. So we had a really wet summer last year. If you've been here 6 years, you probably had 3 or 4 years of normal with a lot of fires, which unfortunately is normal with that
It's
really
been-
wet summer. No, and then you had a historic storm that we haven't seen in 25 years, which is making it a mess now. And so I think we could probably keep an open mind, maybe go out and look at this one more time with you. Just realize that, we've got 30,000 residents and everybody's got an issue with dirt roads, but I think this might merit a relook so that you can describe it. If you're willing to do some of the work, if there's some things that you've got, we can look
Do
at.
90% of it with a little bit of assistance, not much. Not much. They offered to put silt ponds in. Okay,
They, the county or?
the county,
Okay.
Mr. Brad Shaw.
Yeah.
Okay, so he came out with another gentleman before that I don't care to remember his name because
Yeah.
I know I'm being recorded, but I just wanted to, my military mentality didn't help me with him. Okay. Mr. Gavin came out there with, and Mr. Gavin looked at me and said, those aren't trenches that were dug by somebody that lived here. Those are potato mounds. And I said, exactly. So I've done the research on my property. I'm willing to help. If you want me to maintain keeping a trench clean, putting in check, I'll buy the rocks if I can get it okayed to put in check dams going down that hill. Because it's destroying my property. Destroying it. And I would love for you gentlemen to come out there. 30 minutes, that's it. And I can show you everything.
No, thanks, Sean.
Yeah, and if I may, Mr. Chair, and again, I want to thank you for coming in and also thank you for your service. I actually kind of share your frustration about aggregate and things being deposited on a property because you adequately described my property. And the bottom of my property is, in a natural, it's creek bottom. Actually, it's the headwaters, one of the arterials up off of Fountain Creek in Woodland Park. And from when I moved into my house 20 years ago, basically the level of the lower part of the property has risen approximately 3 feet over the years, and it's due to aggregate flowing starting Highway 24 down into another subdivision above me, which was development which occurred after my house was built. And was paved. Also, additional issue that I have is that all of that area was paved, so the water flows freely now, and any aggregate that comes with it, hits a retention pond at the bottom, and then it gets stirred up in a very big storm like the one we had last year, and all of a sudden I have another 6 inches of sediment and other materials that have been dumped on my property, and it's burying fences and just to let you know of my journey on that was I started with the source of the water, which is the state of Colorado and the Highway 24 and some retention ponds that they have. I moved on to the city. I moved on to the county because they got a little piece of it in there. And county did the same thing with me. They did come down and walk the property and look at it. We walked it all the way back up, and ultimately the solution is for me is that I need to control the water that's going to flow across my property, because what's upstream of me is not going to change. The development has happened. The retention ponds are there. Evidently, they're approved and doing most of the time what they're supposed to do. If they don't keep those traps cleaned out of sediment, then I get a lot more dumped on my property than I should, but nonetheless. So the kind of the outcome of that is I'm working with a neighbor behind me now, and we're working on actually getting some stuff brought in to, to basically direct the water where we want it to go instead of where it has been going. But my understanding though is, and we have been briefed on this all the way through, we have received your emails, and the reason I haven't responded, and I'm sure the commissioners have the same reason for not responding, is we were aware that you were working with staff. We were being briefed on it, and we were seeing what you were writing. And I would say fairly regularly, we got, we would be briefed on it. And my understanding was, and you confirmed it today, was that the county did offer to expend its own resources to go in and create basically a retention pond within your property. And the response to that, if I remember correctly, was that you wanted us to reduce your property taxes because those retention ponds would reduce the value of your property. And in a free and open discussion here today, kind of in my opinion, if that was on my property, and whether it was the city of Woodland Park or the state of Colorado or Teller County offered to come in and had a solution that deprived me of the use of part of my property in order to, I shouldn't say deprive me, but alters the use of the property in an area that would fix the problem that I have, I would jump on it in a heartbeat. Even though it takes.
Intervene real quick.
Yeah, please do.
Teller County will not compensate or give tax relief. Understood that.
It
No
would be
problem.
illegal for us to do so.
No problem.
It's up to the assessor to decide what your property's worth.
And that's fine. And there is no benefit to the road system. I have instructed our transportation department to consider this matter closed.
Yeah, and I do
So that to
believe,
me tells me there's no ponds coming in.
well,
I would have still been willing to discuss that, but now I'm not.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
Mr.
mean-
Pryor, I guess what I would say is that, and as Commissioner Williams is said, we're willing to go back and take a look at it again, but an offer was made to help find a solution to the problem.
And I was willing to go with it.
It was utilize county resources, and it sounded like from the briefing is that you were not satisfied with that, so that.
It wasn't that I wasn't satisfied. Mr. Herzog told me it was case closed. Case closed tells me that you're not coming out to help me. I heard nothing from anybody else. That's what that means, and I'm sorry, but now, yes, I'm not putting that on the table again. Why should I, if you already told me that nobody wanted to come out there and see or talk or look at the project beforehand? You just wanted to take your county team members that called me a liar, that told me I didn't know what the hell what I was doing, okay? Everybody basically roadblocked. It was a roadblock, gentlemen,
So Sean, I guess, let me ask the question, if I could respectfully.
and I apologize.
No, that's okay. I mean, you're all property owner. Everybody in this room is a property owner. That's the
Exactly.
one thing we all have in common. So what is your purpose of coming? You've now come in a public setting. You told the commissioners. The offer that Eric mentioned is the same offer I have, and I'm sure Bob, that we can go back and relook. Things change. I don't know what you did in the military, but I was an Apache pilot. I can't tell you how many times they repaired my aircraft and I'd go fly into combat and said, it's not fixed. And they'd say, sir, they'd say, right, good. They'd say, fly and watch it, sir, right? So you've now had multiple years of really wet. You've looked at it, you've tried some mitigation, you've tried working. Again, if those folks called you a liar, I apologize. I don't have proof of that, but I've got to take your word for it. You're here today telling us that. With all that history and the fact that, as Eric really eloquently said, we're willing to go back and look at it now. You know,
I appreciate it.
our pockets are, we're blue collar county. We can't come back and gold plate everybody's property, but we could potentially go back and look and say, okay, based on the snow we just had, based on the wet winter we just had, based on the mitigation that you've had with people with a proper attitude to look at it and say, with your offer, which I think you stated publicly today, to work with us, and that could either be financially or that could be ideas wise. We can't do anything on private property without your permission. So there may be a partnership there. I think that's what Eric's saying, but to hold up that letter, and say, hey, well, it's too late. If it's too late, and let us know, but if we can still work with.
No, I think what you're doing is taking my context out of proportion. All right, what I'm trying to say is I am still willing to work. Okay, I still have. Am I always gonna have that little ankle biter of somebody coming in and calling me a liar on my property? Yes, okay. Am I also always gonna have a little bit of bad feeling now, a little bit of bad taste, I should say. Yes. But am I willing to step out of my little box and say, hey, if we can put in checkpoints coming down this hill to eliminate, to slow the water down, and you need my help, I'm there. Okay? But as far as putting the silt ponds in, all we really need to do is put the berm back in place that was on the edge of the road. We put the berm back in place, we put in the check downs, I'm done. I'm good.
Mr. Herzog, did you have some input?
I just,
He called me much more than that, I'm just being polite.
that was Phil. Looking to find something, but when the response is, we're just. Brad Shaw has been out there multiple,
Mhm.
transportation to be. You don't want us to access the property, you want to rent.
Well, if I'm giving up a portion of my property for a problem that, according to the regulation, even though it's a historical road, but culverts and channel design, that was a failure someplace way back before any of you gentlemen were in the office, because nobody's redone the regulation. So this is what I have to go by. And that's basically telling me, and I've taken up way more time than I wanted to today, gentlemen. I apologize.
Yeah, I think, sounds like there's a plan for another visit out to the property. Now's not the time to debate the regulations.
Right.
So let's gather some more facts and continue to work with Mr. Herzog and staff on it.
Sounds great to me, sir.
Okay,
I have no problem with that.
all
All
right,
right.
thank you.
And again, my apologies. I know I took way more time than I wanted to. I just wanted to come in and blast, so I apologize. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public items not on the agenda today that would like to speak? I don't see, so we will move on for our 9:50 item. Consider ratifying the extension of local emergency declaration sign during a special meeting on March 20th, 2024. Mr. Herzog, are you presenting this, or do we just accept it? And
You did have this.
Out loud or just?
I think Nate,
hey, I guess I'll entertain a motion for.
Chair, make a motion that we ratify the extension of the local disaster emergency declaration in Teller County due to the extreme weather, storm and snowfall, March 28th, 2024, as declared as an emergency meeting of the Teller County Board of Commissioners, initially on the 20th day of March in Teller County, Colorado.
Second. All right, any other discussion required?
No, sir.
Roll call, Ms. Keys.
Mr. Stone?
yes,
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes. All right, moving on to, we have our 9:55 item, and do I understand we're gonna go ahead and pull the 9:55 item on the medical director discussion?
Yes, sir. Station to introduce. Recommend to. Session. You could ratify.
I agree, and I'd say, Mr. Chair, is a reminder to the press that we have two And we already have Tim Hurtado, so nothing is stopped for our OEM here. Everything is extant. And this would be Sean Keenan, who has a great reputation. We just haven't met him, I think, before we want somebody to automate them, even though we know them by their 1 or 2 days in their CV. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Alrighty, next up to our Department of Human Services. Consider a proclamation proclaiming the month of April 24, 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And with Kim Mothy, our director, and Jody Maharis, our community partnership executive director.
Hi,
Good morning, Kim.
good morning. We have, she's gonna take the image. So we do this every year, but, thank you for this time, and we're gonna share reading the proclamation together, and then we have some pinwheels and some cards, and, we'll give you some more information about what we're gonna do throughout the month to celebrate and bring recognition to this event. So, proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month, whereas child abuse and neglect are serious problems affecting every segment of our community, and finding solution requires input and action from everyone. And
Whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. And
whereas in 2022, approximately 3.1 million children in the United States received either an investigation response or alternative response. In Colorado, it was 12,147 reports experienced some form of maltreatment, and in Teller County, 498 reports of child abuse and neglect allegations were reported. And
whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families, and effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community, and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. And
whereas the board acknowledges that we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promoting the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. And
whereas all citizens can and should report suspected child abuse and neglect by calling the statewide Child Abuse and Neglect Hotline at 719-686-5550 or at 1-844-CO4-KIDS. And
whereas the Teller County Department of Human Services, children and families in need of offering free prevention services and other supportive services throughout the year. And
whereas the Community Partnership Family Resource Center provides Teller County families with a wide array of services, initiatives, and parenting supports that strengthen families and help to prevent child abuse. And
whereas CASA of the Pikes Peak Region advocates on behalf of abused and neglected children in our community with programs and initiatives that work to end the generational cycle of continued abuse or neglect. And
whereas the board thanks the many child care providers, service providers, doctors, nurses, parents, police officers, social workers, teachers, organizations, and all others who dedicate their lives to caring for and protecting children.
now therefore, the Teller County Board of County Commissioners hereby proclaims April 24th as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Teller County, Colorado, and urges all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating themselves to improving the quality of life for all children and families.
The end.
Thank you so much, ladies. I know your lives are committed to this cause, and as a spouse of a mandatory reporter, along with our cohorts here who have spouses involved, but thank you so much for everything you do every single day. It's an important issue, and if we can spend just these few minutes every year and assist you guys in promotion and what it takes to try to prevent some of these situations. If we can just prevent some of them, if not just one, it makes a difference. And that's what it's all about, is making a difference in your community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And may I offer a couple comments
Sure.
further on this? One, I wanted to thank the commissioners for your excellent representation at the state and beyond. And just hearing your work today reminded me of how much I appreciate that. As you know, both Kim and I do a lot of our work on a state level or even national level. And your leadership and representation of our community really, really helps me do my work. It really sets a stage for our reputation and our cohesiveness and our integrity. And it makes me proud to also represent Teller County in those arenas. And I know Kim too.
And I would agree with what she says. I mean, your level, I mean, I see you a lot of Fridays up at the state and Commissioner Campbell being on the work allocation committee and all the support has really been wonderful. And we can't say enough about it, and your commitment to all the different avenues that in our agency and the community is greatly appreciated. So thank you.
And then the last thing, I handed out these, you should have one of these. April is Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month, and for that reason, Community Partnership holds this annual event. It's called Teller County Summer Fest. And it will be this Saturday, April 13th from 11 to 1 at Community Partnership. And what this is every year is over 200 families will come out to seek resources for the summer. And as we know, the kids in our community are out of sight quite a bit during the summer. They're not around the resources that they're used to, the food, their education supports, and their supportive adult systems outside of their homes. So we think of summer when we think of the risk in a rural isolated community and what we can do to help parents and children with some of this prevention for the summer. And so that's what this event is about. And I wanted to talk just for a minute about the history of it. Summer Fest used to be two separate events. One was called Kids Fest, which has been in Teller County this is the 25th year. And Kids Fest was always put on by the Resource Exchange and the Teller Park Early Childhood Council in partnership with DHS and community, all the usuals, but they headed it up, they funded it, and they no longer have the capacity or funding to do that. So they asked if Community Partnership would carry on the event. It's been, this is the 25th year. The other event, so this is Summer Fest is Kids Fest combined with Summer Expo. Summer Expo has been in our community for 7 years, and that used to be funded by Woodland Park School District and through one of our mental health community grants that we shared that we no longer have. And the school district does not have the funding or the capacity to continue that on. And so they have asked us to carry it on. They used to pass some of that grant funding passed it through to Community Partnership, and this was one of the efforts that we did in the community. We are trying to take both of these events that our partners no longer have the funding or capacity to support, combining them into one event, and Community Partnerships taking on the expense and because the community is used to both of these resource events. They've been going on in the community for years, and hundreds of families depend on them for connecting with these resources and support. So this year, we also have some funding that will allow us to help families pay for summer camps, childcare, resources to take care of their kids during the summer when they're not in school like they usually are. So thank you.
I just have two other things real quick, and then I know you need to put this into order or whatever that is. But on Fridays, we are wearing blue, especially in our agency. And then this Friday is a big Blue Month day. But also on the 19th, I probably need to call the sheriff's office. We're gonna do a parade. I don't know if you have seen it, where we go out with all the county cars with the little blue stuff and go from police station to police station, probably to Community Partnership and to Aspen Center. So, and probably to this building too. So they'll be going throughout the county. I don't know if you've ever seen it. We try not to cause problems, but it is kind of a good recognition and kind of fun for the staff. Our whole agency is gonna do it. It's not just child welfare. So it's a really good team building event. So we do have some things for you today.
Can we do our annual picture with the pinwheels? Do you guys have time to do that? Okay.
And just, if we could, just before we do it, just to make a few comments, and I want to thank both you ladies
Okay.
and your organizations. I think we both talked about this, and Kim, you were there. As state of Colorado struggles with its budget, it's really tempting for people to take money away from really critical programs. And so right now, and we talked to you about the bills, state of Colorado is $50 million short on programs, more than that. Actually, there's half of that just school lunches, you know, so all of a sudden our most vulnerable populations, the three commissioners look at really, really closely. And so I really applaud you for doing this like you do every year, but this year it's particularly important. You know, again, not to be political, but the current administration likes to throw money at everything. Well, the chickens are coming home to roost. You can't throw money at everything. But we stand in big support of you. You know, I sit on the CASA executive board. I sit on the CASA governance board, and I can tell you there is an uptick. I know we talked last year, Kim, as we were going into school, there was an uptick. And I do share your concern that as we leave school, all the mandatory reporters, you know, suddenly can't report. And so I think one child is too many. There was an accident with a child this weekend that we got to film about, for example. So thank you for what you're doing. Anything we can do to support you. I still have my pinwheel from last year too.
Do you?
It keeps the crows out of my garden after I get done talking to them. But there's a very real need for what you guys are doing. And unfortunately, for those of you, I think both of you were at the Suicide Prevention Symposium in the country now, #1 suicide rate is 10 to 14. And you have to ask yourself why a kid. We were all kids would want to hurt themselves. A lot of it has to do with abuse, sexual abuse, drugs, things they have at home. So thank you so much. It's the most critical thing. It's about our future.
Yeah. Mr. Stone, any comments?
Yeah, no, and as always, the work of both your agency, Jody, and of course your department. You know, I don't know what families would do without it. And, you know, the training that you guys do that keeps them from having to enter into the DHS system is what it is really so valuable, and really what is core to what we're doing here today, which is prevention and getting in with families early. And so I appreciate the event. I've got the thing on the 13th on my calendar now, so you'll see me pop in and,
Oh, thank
and
you.
say hi. I'll
Awesome.
be there.
We'll be there too.
Yeah, and just appreciate both of you, and please extend that to your staff.
Thank you. I will do that.
And for both of you, and just you know, you're critical to kids in our community, and in as Commissioner Williams stated, in an area of limited funding and frankly reduced funding, the fact that you're able to continue forward despite partners' inability to do so, both heartening and commendable. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And you're the support of our county and of the commissioners in particular allows that to happen. There are 33 family resource centers in the state of Colorado, and I can't think of any of my colleagues that have better local support for their organization and for the work. So it makes my work easier.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we need to entertain the motion to adopt the proclamation.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve. We have a number on this?
It's a approximation.
It's a proclamation. Okay, so thank you. So I would move to approve the proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month as read and presented.
Second motion, Mr. Chair.
All right, assuming no other discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Stay right there for 1 second. We get one more meeting. Look at me and smile. I'm a terrible photographer. I take a lot.
That's perfect. Me too.
You can't see them.
Exactly. So thank God for cell phones, you can delete like all my iPhones. I got one picture and that was all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want the special one.
Oh, the special one that costs more than 99 cents.
Grab a picture.
Where's Jim? Yeah. Yeah. People have to put it outside and have it low.
Brings the child out of you. Hey, everybody, say cheese, smile.
That's all.
Okay, I took like 5 or 6,
Thank
so
you.
hopefully there's one good one.
Oh, yeah. If you want. Yeah, they're blue, so.
Okay.
Do you want to keep those? You guys can keep them if you want them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why, thank you, man.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome, my dear. Should I wear blue?
Oh, yes. I wanted to go to Ross. Jamie, want to know? You're good.
So
We saw their cute little pin.
Oh, yes, those are the best.
They are.
Order, sir, order. All right, next up, we have our 10-10 agenda item, our treasurer, here to consider acceptance of the public trustees first quarter report of 2024.
Good morning, all.
Good morning, good morning.
Almost afternoon, it feels like. Just kidding.
It's just,
Looks at the clock like what? I'm Crystal Brown, Teller County Public Trustee with the Teller County Public Trustees First Quarter Report for 2024. The Public Trustees book balance at the close of the fourth quarter was $174,698. The income from the sales, releases, and interest totaled $900,472.55. Disbursement in from the clerk's fees, advertising, redemptions, refunds, and our quarterly disbursements to the general fund of $919,115.04. We closed the first quarter with a new book balance of $156,055.51. The public trustees' fees and interest collected for the first quarter totaled $6,165.30. And pending your approval of this report, I will transfer the amount to the Teller County Treasurer's Office for the additional to the general fund. The first quarter foreclosure statistics, we had 7 NEDs, notice of election and demands, 1 cure, 4 withdrawal, no cure, and then 2 sold. We currently have 17 foreclosures in progress, 2 of which are indefinitely delayed due to filing bankruptcies, and then 3 pending disbursements of overbids funds. We released 234 deeds of trust. Typically, this is due to a property sale, refinance, or just a straight out paying a mortgage. That's only down from 15 from last quarter. So pending your questions, that's all I have for you today.
I did not have any questions. I understand the report, obviously, but thank you for completing this and providing us some perspective on the numbers. With 17 in progress, it seems to be a little bit on the normal side and
Yes.
average for most years. So,
Correct.
gentlemen, did you have any questions?
no, it's really happy, Crystal. And again, it's for the record, we're not approving this, we're just accepting it. We have total faith and confidence in you, Crystal. So
Thank you.
thank you for a really well done report.
Thank you.
Motion?
Sure. Sure, I move that we accept the Public Trustees' first quarter report of 2024, that being April 1st, as presented and as written.
Second?
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Assuming no other discussion, roll call, Ms. Pease.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Williams, Mr.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank so much, Crystal.
Thank you, Crystal.
All right, with that, we'll move on to our Commissioner business items, and Mr. Herzog, you'll be presenting most of these.
Yes. Starting with this one for. This would be suppression. Okay, placed on the road, we utilizing them. They make deliveries. And it's important. Roads.
I don't have any questions.
Sir.
And I see in the scope of services, we do have a time that limits the deliveries, so we don't end up with the hiccup that we did last year, so I didn't have any questions, so what would be your choice on this PSA?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the public service agreement with GMCO Corporation as presented, along with any modifications requested by the contractor and approved by the county attorney.
Second, sir.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Snow, Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes. All right, next PSA.
Moving up to number. Recruitment activities. The future. $9,080. Working to get those places. So
I don't remember having an affiliation with.
this is a, seen this one,
Yeah.
they will, their job.
Some families that might be interested is the main key, I think. Let alone the training and all the rest of the responsibilities that laid out in.
Yeah.
PSA. Any other comments or questions?
No, sir.
All right, motion.
Chair, I move that we approve the professional service agreement PSA with Raise the Future for child-specific recruitment activities as presented with any modifications requested by the contractor and is approved by the county attorney.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cannell?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah.
Moving on to number 3, this is considered. Seeing if. Sort of the language. Contract renew at the end of each year.
I didn't have any questions,
Number
John.
five, this is standard annual, but better rate for 3 years, so it's great. Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the professional services agreement with Universal Corporation as presented along with any modifications requested by the contractor and approved by the county attorney.
Second motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, gentlemen. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cannell?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Moving on to number 4. Yeah, with. Security components of the control room in our jail. Significant amount. Agreement as well. It's like else. Like pretty overdue for that.
And Ross, just a clarification, this is when we toured the jail, this isn't just components, it's that entire control room. So,
Yeah.
And then, well, components. So once this is done, it'll be complete. There's nothing else hanging out that we know of.
Nothing.
Thank you, sir.
And I just have one question also, and it kind of follows up on that, is that I would think there would be some kind of support contract or something moving forward for all this equipment and software. Are we aware of anything like that, or is it a continuation of a previous contract, or is this a new company compared to the prior control room, or did we just kind of roll with it and fix it on our own as we went, you know?
Does have a service. Yep.
Okay, so just want to make sure the ongoing work with this.
The detailed work list has been quite extensive and our IT department and commander of the jail has been quite involved in laying all this out and covering all the details for several months now, because this was originally presented to us in our CIP program and we approved it last year during the budget system. So it's quite the upgrade and quite the significant project that will take lots of coordination, timing issues that they've already worked through their calendar on. So that, what would be your choice on this PSA, gentlemen?
Here, make a motion that we approve the professional services PSA agreement with Kubel Corporation LLC as presented, along with any modifications as requested by the contractor and approved by the county attorney.
Second?
Right, assuming no other discussion, roll call please.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to item. His office, the week. We also will
I think this required a rework last year, so this is consummation of another year moving forward, and I don't have any additional conversations unless you guys did.
Yeah, the only question I had, Ross, I think you're ahead of us on this, is they ought to come at some point, brief us the plan. If you recall, last year, we had a few neighbors that were anti-weeds and needed education, so whatever the plan is, if they come let us know with a map, so we can push it around the website. And not as a condition of
and that
approval.
like the discussion and then. Be direct.
Thank you, sir.
All right, what's your choice on this PSA, gentlemen?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would move professional services agreement with Teller Park Conservation District as presented along with any modifications requested by the contractor and approved by the county attorney.
Take the motion, Mr. Chair.
Gentlemen, roll call please.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Kim.
Yes. That's all the items I have on my agenda. Anything additional?
No. Agenda deadline.
All right. There's nothing else to be brought in front of the board. Thank you all for being here. I have it at 10:39. We'll adjourn. Thank you.